It's the Rear Naked Joke, coming at you live.
More Canadianness to the show. We should probably bring Scott in anytime now. How you doing, Scott?
I'm good, guys. How about yourself?
Doing great. It's been a while since we had you on. I'm glad we can have you back. You've been a busy man. I think before we get into the prestige fighting and the lion fight promotions and everything else, as Joe mentioned, you were a mainstay at the MFC for a long time. For those that don't know, that was a Canadian promotion based out of Edmonton, Alberta, up in Western Canada. And now that you've moved on, and the last time we talked, it was right when, Mark was kind of hinting that he didn't know what was going to happen with it. Mark Pavelich, obviously, hinting at what he didn't know what was going to happen with it. And at that time, you were looking to get into some journalism side. I think you said something along the lines that you wouldn't really look for working for another promotion. Now you're working for two. So is the MFC something that's a thing of the past, or is that still just kind of on hiatus and nobody really knows what's going on with it yet?
Well, I suppose it's a little bit of both when you look at it. I know Mark and I spoke about a week ago, and he is in the process of officially putting the show up for sale. So I think that pretty well sums up that he is not going to be getting back into the business. It was a great 15-year run with the MFC. But, the business side of MMA changed a lot. And I think everyone has seen that, whether you live in Canada or the United States, that, it's a different business model now. There's not a lot of residual money out there. There's not the sponsorships that there used to be. And just even the venues. There aren't a lot of venues in many cities that either want to do MMA or are suitable for MMA. So I think all of those things combined, it always was a labor of love, and it sort of became more labor and less love. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why Mark has stepped aside, and he's doing extremely well with his consulting company. And, I think it just came to the point where it's like, the desire isn't there as much anymore as it used to be. So, if somebody wants to take over the brand, they're welcome to it. And if not. So, but I will always, remember with a great fondness working with the MFC. It was, a lot of hard work, but very rewarding work and, very enjoyable as well. A ton of great fighters, great broadcasters, great behind-the-scenes people, and enjoyed, every minute of it.
Yeah, I had some good memories, too, covering the MFC, especially when you guys came to Windsor, Ontario, and I got to attend the show and work the press conference, the event, and all that stuff. That was really interesting. One of the things that, let's see if you kind of think the same about this, I found with the MFC, they got to a point where they were stuck in this position where they couldn't compete financially with a Bellator or World Series of Fighting, but yet they were too big of a stage to be considered just a regional show that you have, half a dozen of in each province or each state down south. Is that something that you would say is correct?
I think that's very accurate. I guess if you turn things into sort of baseball terminology, with the major leagues being the UFC, I think we were sort of stuck between being, we weren't a major league show, but we weren't a AAA show either. We were better than a lot of the shows out there, and frankly, we put a better product on the floor than a lot of the shows with a ton of money. I mean, if Mark and his team had the money that Bellator has, or the partnership like with a Viacom, or the apparent money and apparent deals that World Series can have, I mean, our product was infinitely better, and we just had to be so budget conscious, which is a good way to do business. And I think a lot of the other shows could take a lesson from being budget conscious and not throwing ridiculous amounts of money at fighters who don't deserve it and you don't need to be paying them that much. So I agree. I mean, it was far bigger than a regional show, and it was treated that way. I mean, just the media, the mainstream media, the MMA-focused media that gave the MFC the attention was far and away bigger and better than any show you would have seen on Access TV, and a lot of times it was bigger and better than what Bellator and World Series were getting. And I think that, with MFC not doing any shows anymore, I think you've seen the media react to that and go, oh, geez, I guess we'll have to pick up some of these other shows now, where in the past they weren't even getting a sniff of what the MFC used to get.
Wow. And then, as you mentioned, Mark, when you spoke to Mark recently, he's going to make the announcement soon that it is up for sale. At least that's what you're gathering from what he's saying. What would come with the purchase of that? Because there's no fighters under contract anymore, from what I would assume. So what would come with it? Would it just be the brand name, or would there be any other assets that come with the purchase of it?
You know what? The majority of the sale would be the brand, and then on top of that would be both the ring and the cage, which were both of them were custom made. Mm-hmm. And then the library and all of the the video library, so to speak, and the all the ancillary things that go with creating a company the size of the MFC. So I hope that somebody will take up the brand, and I think if they do, they're going to get a great product, and I also think that they're going to be able to rely upon the old team that the MFC had, at least to get off the ground. I think that would be smart of any potential buyer to make part of the deal that the past MFC team if not join them full on, at least be part of the package on a consultant basis or something. So I think that the MFC name, it was huge in the MMA industry. I mean, I know several media sources like a Bleacher Report and people like that. At one time considered the MFC top 10 in the world. Of the shows outside of the UFC, some as high as number 5 in the world. So, I think there's a great ability to market that brand again. And, if somebody wants to take it up, I think they'd be getting a great product.